I've worked within the water industry for the last 10 years. I was around when the marketplace first opened up in Scotland in 2008. I worked with the incumbent retailer at the time, and after 5 years I moved to United Utilities and then ended up at Water Plus after the merger with Severn Trent. I'm going to quickly just pass you over to Chris, who's going to do a quick intro.
Hello there, hi there, I'm Chris Quinn and I'm the Water Services Director at Kinect Energy. I have been in the water industry for 18 years now, spent time with water wholesalers, water retailers and latterly in the consultancy area. I'm going to go on later on in the presentation to give you more of an understanding of the partnership that we've developed with Water Plus over the last couple of months for a particular customer, but I'll certainly let Tony kick off the beginning of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So, kicking off. Done that. So the agenda, me and Chris are going to talk about innovation within the water market and how retailers can work closer with consultants to deliver value-added services for customers in the new retail market. Chris is going to get into that a bit more detail from a consultancy perspective, and initially what I'm going to do is just look at the market landscape and look at the expectations of the water market last year. Did it actually fulfil that? Where are we a year down the line? And what was the really sort of key successes and the key challenges along the way? So, expectations. There was 4 main expectations within the market. One of the expectations was that there was going to be a lot more choice within the marketplace. And that's certainly happened, going from a monopolistic market to a competitive market. There's now 34 new retailers within the marketplace. And that ranges from your established water companies right through to independent retailers that have had no background in water, but I've seen a gap in the market. I've been very entrepreneurial. I've maybe targeted a specific sector within the marketplace. We've seen a number of switches, not just based on discounts. As well aware, the margins within the marketplace have been very, very tight. So customers are making decisions based on what other services do retailers offer. It's not all about just the discount you can offer on a retail contract, but what other services, how can you work closer with customers, to make sure that they can understand their consumption better and manage their consumption better as well. The other expectation was there would be improvement to service, and one of the areas that a lot of the multi-site organisations took advantage of was moving from dealing with 20 plus water companies within the marketplace to that one single supplier, which obviously saves a lot of administration costs. And again, I'll get into a wee bit more detail later on in the presentation regarding the figures around switching. The one thing that retailers have wanted to do as well is make it easier to do business with customers. When you look at the old monopolistic model where, you know, a lot of organisations were not that customer centric, there was not a great account management structure in place, it wasn't really easy to deal with organisations. Now there's a big change. A lot of the retailers are becoming more customer centric. They want to make it a lot easier to transact with customers and also provide different points of contact in multiple channels. Transacting online, having account management, having dedicated points of contact, etc. The other area where there was an expectation was there would be tight margins within the marketplace. And yes, there is tight margins within the marketplace. That was no surprise, to say the least. The average gross margin in the marketplace in England is around 8%. Now that's before an organisation takes off their cost to serve, that's before they send a bill, they read a meter. So your average sort of discounts that customers are getting within the English market is anywhere between 0.5 and 3%. Now that's very, very similar to what it was like in the Scottish market back in 2008. The difference now in the Scottish market is the average gross margin in the Scottish market is around 28%. But we have to recognise this is a very immature market. We're only 12 months down the line, whereas the Scottish market has been in operation for the last 10 years. Retailers are having to be a lot more cost efficient. Because the margins are so tight, they have to make sure that we can reduce the cost to serve to pass on potential savings to customers. And the other area that Chris is going to talk about a little later is the increased innovation. That how we can work closer with consultancies and make sure it's not just about the retail discount that we're providing to the customer. So 1 year on and where we are in the marketplace, And I will keep referring to the Scottish marketplace because that is the only real sort of reference point we can make. That market, as I say, has been open for 10 years, but the marketplace in England, if you had 100% share of the market, it represents about £2.5 billion worth of revenue, which is a significant market. In relation to Scotland, the Scottish marketplace, if you had 100% market share, is worth about £360 million. So there's 1.2 million businesses in England that were eligible to switch supplier, and out of that, 5% of businesses have already switched. Now, it might not seem that it's a massive, massive number, but again, when you compare that to Scotland, back in 2008, up until 2012, there was only 2% switching. There's also 34 retail licenses that have been granted. And this graph here, that just shows you there's been a steady flow of switching since market opening every single month. It's also been noted as well that the complaint levels have been quite high within the marketplace, but when you put that into perspective, the complaint levels are below 1% of the entire customer base. Given the fact that it is a new market, retailers have had to separate from wholesalers, have had to implement new systems. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but you can start to understand it. Okay. Now this graph here is going to present a little bit of a challenge presenting when you're colourblind, but I will try my best. So what this really sort of depicts is what sort of switching has been on amongst all the retailers. So around the edges of the graph, you've got all the retailers, and the large grey bubbles here, what that does is represent the market share that the larger organisations have got. So if you look at Water Plus, we are the largest within the marketplace. We've got 30% market share. Then after that, you've got Castle Water, you've got Wave, and then you've also got Business Stream. The figures round here, the top figures, that represents the switching of SPIDs that is taking place in the market since the 1st of April. And the figure below that tells you what the net position is, so where they are now 12 months down the line. And you look at Water Plus, we've switched 45,000 SPIDs since market opening, although we have contracted with more customers, because when we contract with a multi-site organisation, they've got a number of sites within our area as well, but that's not taken into consideration. When you look down here, the right-hand side, this graph just represents what the percentage of churn is regarding SPIDs in relation to portfolio. So Water Plus, we've done a reasonable job, given the fact that we're the largest organisation in the marketplace, we've got the most to lose. We've done not a bad job in actually defending our position. We've done particularly well in the corporate space, in the multi-site organisations. There's been a lot of transfers. When you look at the red dots here, that represents the churn in relation to the portfolio. So some other organisations that are churning quite a lot of customers. There's also some other organisations that are actually green here, and that's where there's been a positive impact in switching. So for instance, there's some organisations that never had water customers to start with, so any switching that they've actually done has had a positive impact. In terms of this graph here on the right-hand side at the top, what that represents is what sectors have actually been active within the marketplace and what sectors have switched. So it's no surprise that the multi-site sector, there's been a large percentage of switching, again, so organisations can benefit from that one single supplier. There's also been a fair degree of switching amongst major customers, which we'd class as major industrial corporate customers as well. And then as you move further forward and you look at public sector, there's not been a huge amount of activity in public sector switching. We're starting to see momentum gather, we're starting to see a lot more tenders coming through, a lot more engagement, and I would expect those figures to increase over the course of the next few months. Then we move on to the SME switching within the marketplace, and that's slightly lower. That's roughly about 2% of the marketplace is went and switched. And which is even more interesting when you look to the graph at the side of it, what it's saying is 45% of all switches in the SME market has been done through the broker channel. The other 5% has been done direct, and then 50% of the switches are classed as cross-border. So that's where an organisation may have be supplied by a water organisation in one area and a waste in the other, and all they've done is repatriated those sites and brought them over to a single supply. So I hope I've done that graph justice, given the fact that I'm colourblind and all the colours look pink to me. But so in terms of the previous graph, and it does paint a little bit of a kind of rosy picture of how things have been going on in the market, there's also been a lot of key challenges within the market over the last 12 months. And one of the challenges has been the standardisation of charges. When you look at certain areas across the UK, the charging structure is very different. For instance, in Scotland, in drainage charges, customers get charged on a rateable value. Other areas of the country, it's on area-based banding. So when you bring in a large multi-site customer, you do have to create a number of different tariffs. The other key challenge within the marketplace has been the data. The data has not always been 100% accurate. So when we get a tender through and we price a tender, when you actually look at what the customer's been billed, it's not exactly the same, and that's presented quite a few challenges as well. And it was something we've seen in the Scottish market as well. It was very, very similar, and it did take a bit of time to actually fix that. So there's been a massive focus in ensuring that we can try and fix the data. Another challenge is that, particularly from Water Plus's perspective, when you're bringing two big, large organisations together and you're bringing different systems together, it takes a while to ensure they're embedded in, and that's got a knock-on effect with the customer. So that has been a challenge, but what I would like to think is we're coming to the end of that journey now, whereas there's other organisations that are still going through that. Just going to pass you across to Chris, and Chris is just going to talk a lot more detail about the project.
I'll confuse everyone and stand on the right. I'm sure that's where Deck stands anyway, it's on the right, not the left. Hi there, I'm Chris Quinn, and I work for the Kinect Energy group. So just to give you just a brief background on Kinect Energy, Kinect Energy are a global leading energy and risk management company. They purchased the business of Orchard Energy back on the 1st of October 2017. So the significance of that is that's the organisation I worked for prior to the takeover. And we have been undergoing a period of transformation over the last 6 months or so, transforming over to Kinect Energy. And from the 1st of April this year, Orchard Energy will officially be rebranded as Kinect Energy. So we mentioned earlier, or Tony mentioned at the beginning of his presentation about a partnership that both Kinect Energy and Water Plus have formed over the last couple of months or so. And it's back to what Tony was saying around, you know, the challenging conditions commercially in the market at the moment is resulting in customers putting more and more pressure on retailers to deliver more value over and above the standard provision of the water and wastewater retail services. And this particular customer, as you see up there, it's a multi-site retailer, one of the top 10 retailers in the UK, have put pressure on Water Plus as their appointed national retailer to deliver what you would call a full forensic analysis of their historic water and wastewater charges for all of their sites across the UK. Now, typically, that wouldn't be a project that, in my opinion, would naturally fit with a water retailer. I almost feel like there's a bit of a conflict of interest there because the water retailer would be almost verifying their own charges in effect. And that's a concept that would make me feel quite uncomfortable. However, Water Plus have understood it, have taken on board the challenge from the customer and understands that the customer wants best value from that service. So what they've done is they've employed an independent expert consultancy to deliver that aspect of the project to ensure that they are able to return maximum back to the customer that they can. And as part of a due diligence process that we've been going through with Water Plus for probably since about August, September last year, before they finally appointed Kinect Energy to deliver the project. And you know, they've appointed Kinect Energy for a number of reasons. I mean, you know, my team has over 50 years combined experience of operating in the water industry. So there's guys in my team that have worked for a number of water retailers, have worked on projects with Ofwat. So really understand the processes, the procedures and the legislation that govern the market, and are best placed to challenge the status quo around some of the historic charges and stuff that we're seeing in the market. And ultimately, in the last 4 or 5 years or so, we've realised refunds and savings for customers for overcharges of around £2 million now. So all of that was taken into consideration as part of the due diligence process that Water Plus have been going through over the last few months or so with ourselves. I mean, from our perspective, we have carried out about 2,500 of these audits and revenue recovery projects for customers over the last 4 years or so, and we have never partnered up with a water company to deliver that. And it's an interesting one from our perspective because we're an independent consultancy in this market, and we want to retain our independence. So it's we need to have careful consideration if we were to ever partner up with a water company on even a project like this that doesn't impact on any other aspect of my business. So we give careful consideration to this as well, and we have to give careful consideration of the type of customer and careful consideration over the water retailer that we would partner up with. We see a lot of synergies with Water Plus, and some of these I've brought out here. We see Water Plus as a safe pair of hands. They are the largest water company in the UK by a country mile. They have 30% market share. They have always, I've put down collaborative approach there, but they have always embraced the broker channel as a route to market. And we've worked closely with not only Water Plus, but the prior two businesses as well, United Utilities and Severn Trent. So, that's always come through in terms of our working with Water Plus up until this point. And similar to ourselves, we see Water Plus investing in long-term relationships. We don't see them as a transactional business. We see them as a business that form long-term relationships with our customers. And that's very much how we do business at Kinect Energy as well. So we'll pull out these synergies when making the decision that we've made here to partner up with Water Plus. And innovative, I mean, this is an innovative way to do business in the water industry. We have not, I've been in the industry now for 18 years, and I've certainly never seen a water retailer and a consultancy like ourselves partner up to deliver a project like this. But as I say, increased demand from customers is meaning that retailers and indeed consultancies like ourselves are having to think outside the box in order to deliver best value for customers. So just to give you a bit, I mean, in terms of my understanding, in terms of how I see the benefits for the customer now, when you look at the project strategically, the customer now has a single provider for all the provision of all of their water and wastewater retail services across the UK. And as well, a further extension to that is that they have a single provider now for the historic invoice analysis or their water efficiency work, which actually for a customer like this, they would have, if it wasn't through a single provider, they would have multiple different providers, multiple different tenders that would have to be operating at the same time. So it's efficient from the customers from that perspective. And with Water Plus now being fully accountable to the customer, so for all aspects of the services that they're delivering, and indeed we will deliver for the customer, Water Plus are our customer, so Water Plus are fully accountable to the customer that they've contracted with. But from the customer's perspective, what they can be sure of is that they have employed an independent expert consultancy to manage the project and make sure that they deliver best value back to the customer. For ourselves, I mean, we've now got access to a new customer type that generally we wouldn't have had direct access to in the past, and that presents an exciting opportunity for myself and the guys in my team to dig a bit deeper into the charges and the services from customers that maybe we've never worked with in the past before, and we're interested to see the sorts of opportunities that we see as part of that analysis process. And for us, ease of the delivery of the project, if we did have secured a project like this for a national customer who have sites the length and breadth of the UK, we would in effect be dealing with over 20 different retailers in order to deliver that project. So, bringing in invoices, bringing in data from 20 odd different water suppliers, reviewing that. And if we were to raise any claims or inquiries, we'd be doing that with over 20 different retailers. But actually, this project means we will drive that all through a single point of contact, through a agreed set of service level agreements and real clear lines of communication into the water supplier, which will help deliver the project far more efficiently if we were to do it say for another customer who hadn't quite looked at a similar concept to this. And for us, first mover advantage, we don't see any other water retailer and consultancy doing this in the market at the moment. So between ourselves and Water Plus, we've come up with a pioneering stance that I believe will be replicated with other water retailers and other consultancies in the future. But certainly we can always say that we came up with the concept for customers. Tony, I think it's back to you.
Okay, so just to summarise, guys, the market has matured broadly in line with our expectations. As I mentioned earlier, but are fully aware there's been a lot of system and market issues that has impacted on service, but we are starting to work our way through that. Innovation has been slow because it has been a lot of firefighting and fixing the basics. But the one message I'd like to get across is the fact that we believe there is a significant opportunity for brokers and consultants and water efficiency providers to work closer with retailers. And it's the one thing Chris had mentioned there is that Water Plus, we have really embraced the broker channel. Previously at United Utilities it was exactly the same as well, because we realise it's such an important and such an influential channel. And the last thing we want to do is stand on your toes as well. So I think there will be opportunities in the future to work a lot more closer together.